We now light the chalice, the symbol of our living faith. If you're joining us on light, you may wish to light a candle or a chalice of your own. I invite you to hear today's chalice lighting words, The Heart of Our Faith, by Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson. What is it that calls you here, that calls you onward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives your power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, our hearts. Come, let us worship together.
Well, a long time ago, there were two brothers who were kings. One of them wore a crown of, oak leaves. I didn't have any oak leaves, so I made my crown out of acorns, which of course turn into oak trees, which would be oak leaves eventually. So that's my oak crown. And he was called the Oak King. The other brother, who was older, wore a crown of holly, and he was called a holly king. Now, both brothers thought that they should rule the land themselves. The oak king liked things bright and sunny and warm, but the holly king liked things cold and dark, and he wanted the earth to sleep all the time. And they fought about it all the time. Well, both kings loved a beautiful lady, and she loved them both, but she hated to see them fight. So she said, you should share the time. The oak king could rule for half the year, and the holly king for the other half. But it did no good. They still quarreled all the time. And then, one hot summer day, the holly king drew his sword, and the two kings began to fight. And although the oak king fought very bravely, the holly king struck a mortal blow, and the oak king fell. My brother, said the holly king, what have I done? As he held his brother's bleeding body. The lady took the oak king away, and now the holly king was ruling all the time. The days grew shorter and cooler. The nights grew longer and colder. The snows began to fall. The plants and the animals went to sleep. Those animals that didn't go to sleep had a hard time finding food and shelter. One day, the lady appeared when the sun looked like it was never coming back, and she said, fear not, because your brother is not dead. And there stood the oak king, tall and young and healthy. And so the holly king gladly stepped aside, and the oak king started to rule. The days grew longer and warmer. The plants and animals awoke, and the earth grew green again. And so the cycle continued. Half of the year, the oak king ruled, and the other half, the holly king. And that's how the ancestors explained the seasons. Okay, what season do you think the oak king is? Rue?
Spring or summer.
Spring and summer, exactly. And then who do you think the holly king is? Rainy? Stormy, but what's the cold season? What's the cold season? What season is coming soon? December. Does anyone know what that season is? Ask me? It is. It's the winter. And that's how the seasons got started. Now we're going to sing you to your classes.
Our reading this morning is The Low Road by Marge Piercy. The Low Road. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can set you up. They can bust you. They can break your fingers. They can burn your brain with electricity, blur you with drugs, till you can't walk, can't remember. They can take your child, wall up your lover. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. How can you stop them? Alone you can fight, you can refuse, you can take whatever revenge you can, but they roll over you. But two people fighting, back to back, can cut through a mob. A snake dancing file can break a cordon. An army can meet an army. Two people can keep each other sane. can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. 3 people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With 4, you can play bridge and start an organization. With 6, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen makes a demonstration. 100 fill a hall. 1,000 have solidarity in your own newsletter. 10,000 power in your own paper. 100,000 your own media. 10 million your own country. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day you mean one more.
It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day you mean one more. What does it mean to feel like you are part of the we? What does it mean to feel as though you belong? In this powerful Marge Piercy poem, thank you, Craig, for your beautiful reading, I find an example from my own life. You may have noticed that I'm fond of using poems as texts during our worship services. They are places where ideas are articulated beautifully, often briefly, and often in new ways that present us with different perspectives. In short, I pick them because poems are the closest thing I personally have to scripture. This was not always the case when I was in high school. I hated poetry. I hated when we had to learn it. I hated when we had to write it. I had a terrible attitude about it, and I did not keep my opinions to myself. But somewhere along the way, that changed. And in large part, that was due to my friend Laura. She's a poet herself and a lover of poetry and just happens to also be a Unitarian Universalist minister. She has an incredible knowledge of and memory for poetry. So when I wanted this particular poem but could not remember for the life of me what it was called, Laura was the first person I sent a message to. I said, help. There's a poem, and I think it's Marge Piercy, but I'm not sure, and it's something about like adding another one, and it's about community and stuff. And she said in seconds, do you mean the low road? Yes. It was magical. It is magical when you fit with a person or a group of people, when you share ideas, passions, interests, values. You can feel a sense of at-homeness within the group, even as it moves from small networks of support into communities and even social movements. And of course, that feeling of finding a home is often named as the reason people stay in Unitarian Universalist congregations after they find them. Throughout this year, as you may know, I am preaching a series of sermons on the Article 2 Study Commission and the ongoing work of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And this is the third sermon in that series. There will be 5 total. Today is about belonging. Today's reading has a lot to say about belonging. For instance, 2 people can keep each other sane, can give support, conviction, love, massage, hope, sex. 3 people are a delegation, a committee, a wedge. With 4, you can play bridge and start an organization. With 6, you can rent a whole house, eat pie for dinner with no seconds, and hold a fundraising party. A dozen make a demonstration, 100 fill a hall, 1,000 have solidarity and your own newsletter, 10,000 power and your own paper, 100,000 your own media, 10 million your own country. Now, Piercy's poem was published in 1977, so while it still rings with a deep truth, obviously some things have changed. It clearly no longer takes 100,000 people to have their own media anymore, for instance, or to have a platform which is hosted on another person's media. But it is that growth, that accretion of belonging that still rings so true. There is the sense of safety and expansiveness. If I'm alone in a fight, I'm in trouble. If I have someone with me, the trouble lessens. The more people, the better, it seems. And this is not to say that belonging is uncomplicated. It goes on one at a time. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again and they say no. It starts when you say we and know who you mean. And each day, you mean one more. At what point does one more feel unwieldy? At what point does one more mean it's harder to make decisions, to come to consensus, to do the hard work of discussion, deliberation, and compromise that is the hallmark of functional larger groups? British anthropologist Robin Dunbar developed a theory based on the size of primate communities in relation to the size of the primate brain. Humans are primates, so by his calculations, the upper limits for humans should be around 150 individuals. This is now called the Dunbar number, and while ongoing research has shown there are many more nuances to the creation of functional social groups, it can sometimes be a useful tool to consider how we will manage, how we'll survive, how we will thrive in ever larger groups. If we love our group, whatever it is, our friend group, our bridge club, our gardening collective, our movie discussion group on social media, we want to share it with people, right? Sure. Mostly. Have you ever felt protective of a group? I have. I'm not necessarily proud of this example. I am part of a book club that has been in existence since January of 2001. And of course, over time, some members have dropped away and others have joined. My friend who founded it and I are the only original members left. And right now, the size feels just right. 2 months ago, a friend brought a friend of his from work, and I'll admit, again, not proud of this. At first, I thought, oh no, it's somebody new, and they don't know our jokes, and they don't know our history, and they don't get it. You know what? She's great. And pretty quickly, I became super glad that we'd added one more to our we. But that tension exists and is real. When we speak in terms of faith communities, I have heard membership growth discussions that cited the terrible 200s. Growing from a small congregation to a larger one often gets stymied when the numbers get into the 200s. Is this because of the Dunbar number? Is it because it's harder to maintain consensus as numbers grow? Is it because too much growth can start to feel unwelcome by people who love the community just as it is? Yes, all of those things are true and more. And there's no judgment in that statement. This is a repeatable phenomenon over and over in UU congregations and other congregations of other faiths and other organizations. Our membership, if you are curious, hovers right around 200. So when you move beyond the congregational level, when it can grow even more challenging to make decisions as your own community grows, what must it be like to propose, consider, and enact sweeping change on a national scale? It would look something like the work that the Article 2 Study Commission has undertaken in the past 2 years. It means they have held lots and lots of small conversations, because when you add up enough small groups, you can get a sense of the larger whole. Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association is the subject, and as I've noted, this is the place where our principles and sources are defined. So the ongoing work has needed not only to try to gain input from a large number of interested people, but also with the end goal of revising a beloved part of our faith. The charge does note, revise as necessary. What kind of faith revises its own foundations? Well, the truth of the matter is that the 7 principles and 6 sources currently contained within Article 2 have only been there in that form since the 1980s. In fact, some of the language, to make it less gender specific, were changed mere years ago, just a handful of years ago, 2019. Every time in the history of the Unitarian Universalist Association that we have considered this part of our bylaws, there has been pushback. There were people speaking against adding the 7th principle, the interdependent web. There were people who were speaking out against adding the sources at all, and then more people who spoke out against adding earth-centered traditions as one of our sources. Change is unsettling. And we may intellectually understand on some level that change can lead to improvement, but in the moment, when the future feels uncertain, it can be hard to remember that, because change can also lead to degradation, to dispute, and to a diminution of the we. That's a word I never know how to pronounce. Diminution. Whatever. Makes it smaller. Makes the we smaller. What a radical notion, then, to challenge ourselves to actively engage with this change. Because change will come, no matter what. To know this and deliberately take up the work of change, to try to include as many of our we as possible in that work. It's audacious, it's not guaranteed, and to my mind, it is cause for hope. Because the flip side of we, of every we that we create, is they. We hear they a lot at the start of today's poem. What can they do to you? Whatever they want. They can do anything you can't stop them from doing. Of course, in the poem, Piercy's they isn't strictly defined, nor is her we. Because what matters is that line. When we talk about belonging, we must also consider those who do not belong. Not with a mind to try to please all people at all times. That would not be possible. But when we create a we, it is imperative that we also consider what they is being created. Who is being invited or included? Who is being shut out or shunned? As we continue to hear about the work of the Article 2 Commission, and as we look forward to the updated draft of the proposed revisions, which should be available in January, next month, it might do well for us to consider what growth and change can mean. For the we that is UUC York, and for the we that is Unitarian Universalism more broadly. We are a small faith tradition in the grand scheme of things, and it is my belief that the growth and expansion of Unitarian Universalism writ large can be a liberating and a life-saving force in our society. And growth and expansion, which also sometimes includes contraction, right? Those changes will always be messy, will always be challenging, will always spark some people's passions while igniting others' fears. But if you can remember a sense of your own belonging, the sense of at-homeness that you first felt in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, it is my guess that you will want other people to experience that. That sense of discovery, that sense of coming home is priceless. I would like that any we that I'm a part of to wish and work for more people to have that experience. As we sang earlier, draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song, no one is alone. Please do look to your communications from UUC York for updates on the Article 2 Study Commission's ongoing work as we prepare for the General Assembly in Pittsburgh in June of 2023. The work of drawing this circle, of expanding our we, is work that we are all called to do. It starts when you say we and know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. May it be so.
Please join us in extinguishing our chalice and your home chalices, if you have lit them, with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
As we go into our week ahead, we carry love, mercy, kindness within our hearts, the flame of this community, that sense of belonging that we wish to share. So may it be.